Hi dear students, welcome to one more session on microbiology. We had come across different types of xenobiotics. What are the different strategies of bioremediation for them? And we had also previously explained the oil spill and their bioremediation. In this session, I would like to talk mainly on heavy metal detoxification or what are the heavy metal bioremediation strategies. Of course, you can include the matters which have been discussed commonly in the bioremediation for heavy metal also. But now I'm trying to be a little more specific for the heavy metal detoxification methods. Now, what are heavy metals? Of course, heavy metals are those metals which are considered to be of high molecular weight, and these could include various metals. Now, for example, lead, chromium, cadmium, mercury, uranium, copper, nickel, gold, silver, arsenic, zinc, and selenium. These are all coming under the category of heavy metals. And where do these heavy metals come from? They can be obtained uh, from different ways. Now, by mining operations, refining ores, or when you do a sludge disposal, from the paints, alloys, batteries which we use, the fly ashes from incinerators, or while the processing of radioactive materials, metal plating, and the manufacture of electrical equipments, pesticides, and preservations. All of these would result in the formation of heavy metals all around. And these heavy metals, which we use in different industries, would sometimes get bioaccumulated and biomagnified in the plants as well as in the animals. And of course, when we consume the plants as well as the animals, they also get accumulated in within the human body too. So the remediation of heavy metals becomes very much relevant. What are the nature of these heavy metals? We'll just have a look. Arsenic, a naturally occurring geological deposit, can dissolve in groundwater, drinking water, and air pollutants, contaminated soil or industrial waste, and the consumption of food produced from polluted soils are all sources of heavy metal exposure to us. Now, when you have a mineral rock weathering or by various other activities, when the heavy metals happen to come into the environment, they find their way through the drinking water, through the atmosphere, through the soil, into the plants, and from the plants they can come to the animals, and to the animals they can directly come to the human beings also. So all these activities, the urban activities, the industrial activities, the mining activities, the agricultural activity, the fertilizers which flow, which we use, they all, in that also the heavy metals are there. They are all coming and they happen to flow into the water. Along with the sediments, they will come and accumulate in the water bodies. And of course, this water bodies can be used as a source of water for the plants. And the plants in turn take it. And as I mentioned earlier, bioaccumulation and biomagnification can happen. Hope so you remember what is the difference between the bioaccumulation and biomagnification. Bioaccumulation is the occurrence of a xenobiotic extensively in a particular organism, and biomagnification is the step in which it increases, whereas xenobiotic increases in each trophic level of a food chain. So heavy metals can bioaccumulate as well as biomagnify some cases when they are being left into the environment. And the accumulation of these heavy metals within our body could leave back neurotoxic, nephrotoxic, phytotoxic, and teratogenic effects as observed. Now, what do you mean neurotoxic? That is, your nerves are being damaged. Nephro, your kidney is being damaged. Phytotoxic, the fetus is missing. teratogenic, cancer generating effects. So all these could be resulted as a result of the heavy metal toxicity. So let me just show you some of the effects of some adverse effects of the heavy metals. Now lead, as I have already discussed with you, lead poisoning. It is a frequent contaminant in the plastic toys which children use, the yellow colored ones. They are highly contaminated with the lead. So it could cause acute or chronic damage to the nervous system under long-term exposure. Cadmium. Cadmium could cause defects in the renal dysfunction. Renal means kidney failure, lung disease, lung cancer, and damage to the respiratory system. Copper. Copper it can cause anemia at a very high dose, liver and kidney damage, stomach and intestinal irritation. Mercury. Now, where is mercury found? Mercury is we use mercury at the in the thermometers. Hope so you remember. It's a silver. It's a liquid metal which we have. So the exposure to mercury can cause blindness, deafness, brain damage, digestive problems, kidney damage, lack of coordination, and mental retardation. Chromium. Chromium is another heavy metal. It can cause irritation of the skin, ulceration of a low level exposure, even at low level exposure, and the kidney and the liver damage, the damage to the circulatory and the nerve tissue on long term exposure. And we have arsenic, which will cause sensory changes, nickel, which causes skin cancers, asthma, bronchial cancer, etc. Now, we ourselves know that the incidence of cancers and neurological diseases as well as kidney failures are being found to be very higher nowadays. Now, what are the reasons for it? You can find out whenever all these chemicals happen to enter your body, they are a burden to your body and that could result to adverse effects. Now, of course, the term bioremediation is quite familiar to you by now. It's but nothing, any process when you use microorganisms, fungi, as well as any green plant or their enzymes to return, or it can be any biological agent, when you use them or their enzymes to return the natural environment altered by contaminants to its original condition. So, what does it mean? When you use any biological agent to remove or degrade the xenobiotic, that is referred to as a term called bioremediation. And the aftermath of that is what? You will try to make the environment into a natural condition as it was. So, in a polluted environment, you have lots of xenobiotics which will harm it. So, by the process of bioremediation, you use microbes, fungi, or even sometimes green plants and their enzymes because they are also biological agents. You might use them and convert these pollutants into less toxic or harmless compounds. So this is just a cartoon. So these are some microbes which are depicted over here. So let's get this straight. We work for 24 hours in these conditions and for no pay, of course. The microorganisms are detoxifying some of these antibiotics, and that's the commentary which we came across over here. So the term bioremediation using biological agents can be carried out ex situ or in situ, as we had already discussed, and different terms. There are different technical interventions of them: bioaugmentation, composting, bioventing, biopiling, biosparging, natural attenuation. Of course, you can just go through the videos which I had previously explained on these. And what happens in bioremediation of heavy metals? Let me just tell you that. When a microbe is coming into interaction, or when it is interacting with a heavy metal, either what it does is the heavy metal will get accumulated in the microbial cell, or it can do the process of bioadsorption, that is, on the surface of the microbial cell, the heavy metal will get adsorbed onto the surface, or it will biomineralize it. Biomineralize it means degrade the heavy metal and make it into, break down the heavy metal and make it into a small mineral. Then biotransformation, that is converting the heavy metal containing compound into something else. Or the other one, bioleaching. Bioleaching is a process which we will be discussing in detail. It's a technique where the microbes will use the heavy metals and help us to extract some metals. And of course, the process of biodegradation. Biodegradation is the process of breakdown of the components. So, uh, this biomineralization is the formation of producing minerals as a result of the breakdown. So, all these can happen within the heavy metal detoxification. So, let's talk about biosorption or bioadsorption. And this, it's nothing but it involves a solid phase. Now, for example, it would be any biological agent and a liquid phase which will contain a dissolved species to be absorbed. That is, now, for example, if a metal ion is contaminated in the water will serve as a liquid phase. And because the sorbate is nothing which will absorb the heavy metal onto it. That will be there and the water is also being brought, and what would happen, the heavy metals from the water will be absorbed onto the biological agent, and this can be done using living cells either by passive absorption or active absorption. And passive absorption, the metal ions are absorbed onto the surface of the cell by interaction between metals and the functional groups displaced on the surface of the cell. And you just have to remember the concept that from a liquid phase, the heavy metals are being absorbed onto a particular substance. So, in passive absorption, it is a metabolically independent process. And what happens? It can proceed rapidly by any or one of the combination of the metal binding. You don't have to worry about it. It just remember that it can happen either actively or passively. In active absorption, the metal ion penetrates the cell membrane and enters into the cell. In passive absorption, along with certain other substances, the metal is also getting absorbed. Now, for example, like coordination, complexation, ion exchange, electrostatic interactions, or metal precipitation, etc. By that, passively the metal gets absorbed. And one of the inactive case, what happens? The metal is penetrating into the cell membrane and entering into the cell. Now, an alga called Chlorella vulgaris. Chlorella is an algae which we can also eat, okay, which we consume. So, some species of that. Now, Chlorella vulgaris, it has been used to take uptake of lead. Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is an adsorbent of zinc and cadmium through ion exchange mechanism. And you can see that the process of bioaccumulation can also happen within these organisms by the process when they are being treated with heavy metals. We already know what is bioaccumulation because we have already explained it in the previous videos. So the bacterial cell, okay, it can undergo different methods, like by active transport the heavy metal can go inside, or by ion exchange it can, that is, instead of the heavy metal it will take up the heavy metal instead of some other one. Now copper is taken and hydrogen is being replaced out, that is a ion exchange method. Or by electrostatic interactions. Now, for example, the heavy metal is having a charge and the cell will have a negative charge, so it is adsorbed onto it. Or by with the help of certain metal binding proteins, that time the microorganism might take it. Or by extracellular interaction. Now, for example, the bacteria will produce some extracellular products, okay, like surfactants or lipids or something, extracellular polymeric substances, that is called the EPS. So they will interact with the heavy metals, that could help the bioabsorption, or sometimes the metal will get precipitated. So like that, the bacterial cell will take up the heavy metal by different methods, either actively taking it inside, or by ion exchange, or by electrostatic interactions, or by complexation where metal binding proteins will play a role, or by production of extracellular polysaccharides which will, or polymeric substances, sorry, extracellular polymeric substances, and they will react with the heavy metal, or the metal precipitation can happen. By all these techniques, the microbial cell will take the heavy metal within inside. And in some cases, you can also find a process called bioimmobilization. What do you mean by bioimmobilization? Bioimmobilization is nothing but a technique in which uh, biological agents are mainly being used so that they will be immobilized in a particular. What do you mean by immobilization? Immobilization means trapping. Okay, the bacteria or the agent which is used for the heavy metal removing, that is being trapped in a gel-like structure or something like that, and then they will do the process of biotransformation or bioabsorption and all that. That is called bioimmobilization. It's nothing, it's just the same thing. You know, I'll give you a simple example. You take your bacteria, put it into a gel, and keep the bacteria is in such a way that it is inside the gel, it cannot move from the gel. But when I pass some heavy metal solutions through it, the bacteria within the gel will take up the heavy metals onto it, and the water will be free from the heavy metals. That is an example of bioimmobilization. So that is also a way of uh, and this is another one where we precipitate it. Of course, I have already discussed this technique. And then you can also use it for bioleaching. Okay, bioleaching is nothing but the microbes mobilize the heavy metals from contaminated. That is, they remove the heavy metals from a contaminated environment, and the metals are in such a way that you can utilize it for other things. We will be talking about that in the next session, because we have a separate session on bioleaching. So that's why I'm not going to discuss it right now. So you can also do the process of biomineralization. Okay, it is a formation of minerals by complex processes directly or indirectly driven by the living organisms associated with the metabolic activity due to the impact of compound produced in the intracellular or the extracellular matrix of the organism. I had told you about EPS, which is being produced by the organisms. So the organisms will produce certain EPS or biosurfactants or something like that into the extracellular environment, or sometimes they will produce certain compounds in the intracellular environment which will help to convert these heavy metals into minerals. That is the process called biomineralization. And various bacteria like bacillus, corynebacterium, staphylococcus, Kurtia and all that, they all can do the process of biomineralization. And these are some of the bacterial species which can be used. You do remember thiobacillus peroxidans, because that is important in bioleaching as well as in heavy metal. Then Corynebacterium glutanicum, D-sulfovibrio, Acinetobacter, these are all some of the important members which can do the process of heavy metal detoxification. And we also do have fungal species like Aspergillus, uh, Ganoderma, Penicillium, Pleurotus. These are all other fungus which can do the process of heavy metal losing. And what is the mechanism of heavy metal uptake? One was a biosorption, I told you, biosorption, and the bioaccumulation would result. And this process of uptake can be carried out with the help of certain polymers. Now, for example, if it's an iron-bearing heavy metal, you can produce some siderophores. You have learned about siderophores as metal uptaking proteins. These siderophores will help to take about metals. Then assistance of specific molecules which have been produced by microbial cells, that will help us. Then extracellular production of, now for example, slime layers could be there, that would help to take the heavy metals onto the body surface. Or sometimes efflux transporters which will take in the metals inside the cell, causing the bioaccumulation. Then you can have the production of certain agents called the biosurfactants. As I told you, biosurfactants are we had discussed about biosurfactants in the oil spills, which will help to make the oil soluble in water. The same way over here, the use of biosurfactants will also help to take up heavy metals by, like for example, cadmium, lead and zinc and all, they all can be taken by using biosurfactants. And they might involve electrostatic interactions or complexations which will enable the heavy metal to be taken in. And of course, the next method of bioremediation of heavy metal is by using phytoremediation. The term itself is helping you to understand that the use of plants to take up the heavy metals from the ground or from the soil can be carried out by using plants. And what happens is, if there is a plant and if through the exudates, if the heavy metal is coming into the soil, the plant roots will take up, what happens, will take up the heavy metals onto it, and that will get accumulated within the plant. And these are called the hyper accumulators. Now some of the plants have a what greater ability to take up heavy metals, and these are some of them, like salic species, which is good in taking up metals like cadmium, copper, lead, and zinc. Castor is a wild plant. Okay, it is a wild plant. You know about, you can see it across the villages and all that. Castor plants are just growing like that, and they are capable of taking up cadmium, and like that many plants are over there. So this is a case of phytoremediation, which in which the plant will take it up, and sometimes phytodegradation or the breakdown will happen, and sometimes phytostabilization will happen, and the rhizosphere degradation, that is the degradation of the metals happens at the rhizosphere, or the rhizosphere is a organisms. Rhizosphere is a soil which has been associated with the roots of a plant, so there also degradation can happen. Okay, yeah, I have already mentioned this. And of course, they do have some advantages of bioremediation. The cost of phytoremediation is lower than that of the traditional processes, both in situ and ex situ, and it can be employed in areas that are inaccessible without excavation, and the plants can be easily monitored. The possibility of the recovery and reuse of valuable metals is possible, and it is the least harmful method also. But I need to add one more thing. All the concepts that we used in the common technique of bioremediation, like bioventing, biopiling, excavation, and all that, that also can be utilized here in a technology. So you can combine it both together and explain the heavy metal bioremediation. In the previous session, I had just given you a common aspect, a common interaction on the bioremediation techniques, and now I just specified what are the mechanisms here by which the heavy metals are being taken up by the plants as well as by the microbes. Thank you for now.